women! I like women! I don't like men!
Say it!
I'm not gay.
Say it!
I'm not gay.
Say it louder!
I'm not gay! I'm not gay! I like women! Dead! Dead! Dead!
I'm 25 years old and I'm homeless. Well, not exactly 25, but I think I'm near enough where I can lie about it and it not be egregious. Also, I'm 25 and I'm homeless just sounds better on the title. First, let's clear the runway before we begin. I immediately apologize for the camera quality as well as the microphone quality, but I had to abandon my home in some haste, as you'll find out. And also, I want to make it clear that in this video, I will be addressing two different kinds of people. Longtime viewers of my channel, who I'm going to give yet another life update about and make another excuse as to why I can't make videos. Getting pathetic at this point, I do more update videos than I actually make real videos. And I'll also be talking to new incoming viewers and give them a little bit of advice and tell them exactly where I went wrong, so hopefully you don't do the same. Let's start with the people who already watch me. This past month or 3 months has been absolutely awful for me. I accidentally gave myself second-degree burns, I had to undergo surgery, and now I'm homeless. So needless to say, my mental health is hanging on by a thread. Fortunately for me at least, I'm too stubborn to pay it any mind, and I'd rather let my emotions out in the healthy way of screaming at women and children close to me.
Why am I so sad?
Now let's address the new viewers. My name is Dino. I'm nearly a 25-year-old Cape Townian-born man who's lived in England for nearly 6 years now. And I've been an on and off YouTuber on various channels for about 10 to 12 years, taking it in different degrees of seriousness. Why is that relevant towards my advice to you? Well, you see, I've been doing YouTube for such a long time, probably literally since I was 13 years old, and I have not been successful monetarily with it at all. Am I blaming anyone? Yes, myself. Are there things I could have done differently to make it more successful? Yes, there is. Just like how there were things I could have done to make myself more successful in life. You see, because I've always been so passionate and so into doing YouTube videos, I always assumed that I would naturally make it. I always assumed it was just a natural inevitability. So from the time I was 14 years old, instead of focusing on, I don't know, developing a career path that could help me in the future, I focused on making YouTube videos. And unlike your Jake Pauls and your Mr. Beast stories, mine has led me here. For every one success story you see, there's probably 1,000 failures in the background. And as much as those guys would like to say it's just pure skill, which is a huge factor of it, luck does play a part. Although that being said, you can increase your luck by working even harder. So I don't know what I'm trying to say, I'm just lamenting. What I am trying to say, though, clearly, is I am slightly regretful of the choices I've made, but also not. I really wish that I had diversified myself in some ways, by studying more, trying different fields, trying different hobbies, and not just shoehorn myself into this hole. I chose not to study in school. Why? Because I was obsessed with YouTube. I chose not to go to uni because why? I was obsessed with YouTube. I chose a part-time job which pays pretty okay and that I'm still currently doing because why? I'm obsessed with YouTube. Let's put a pin in that obsession because it'll come back later as to how I found myself where I am now. And let me tell you a little bit of my life story. I immigrated from Cape Town when I was 18 years old to move over to England. My family couldn't afford to live over there anymore. We were pretty much dirt poor, just like everybody else. And so my parents moved over when I was about 16 or 17, and I stayed with my partner for another year in the hopes of finishing school. I never managed to finish school properly because of my obsession with YouTube, and so I flew over to England at 18 with no degree. In other words, I have no high school qualifications. Not that that matters in the UK very much, because it's 90% apprenticeships and training, and they don't really care about academia, but I digress. I lived with my parents for 6 months until I could find a job, and eventually started paying them board when I started working as a cleaner in a care home. Now, I wasn't making great money, mind you, but I was making enough to get by. However, I reached something of an impasse. That partner that I left back in Cape Town and myself started getting into some heated arguments because distance does that, and we reached something of an impasse. What's the next step? Am I going to continue just to mess about, chase this dream that I've always had my entire life, or am I going to get serious and work on getting her into the country? I chose to be serious. That's mistake number one. Not getting the partner over. We're still happily together, thank you. But I had to put my passion on hold for a period of 2 years while I worked up the money on minimum wage working as a care assistant to get my now wife across. The reason I say that was a mistake was because I gave up the most important part of my entire life in the pursuit of chasing some money. Fast forward, I'm 20 years old now, recently married to a very beautiful woman, or at least she used to be, and me and that partner need to branch out into our own space. Now keep in mind, all I did for an entire year was literally work 12-hour shifts. I never did anything else. I never had time to do my driver's license. I never had time to go be social. I never had time to go to the pub. I just worked and worked and worked just to save up enough money to get her over, to pay for our wedding, to pay for her visa. £5,741 to be exact. That's what I saved up, and that's what disappeared in an instant. 2 years of my life completely vanished in a blink of the eye out of my bank account. 2 years of my life got reset to £0, and all I had to show for it was me being completely, utterly fucking miserable, because the entirety of those 2 years I couldn't pursue my love. So here comes mistake number 2. Being so angry at seeing all of this money disappear, and against my partners and my parents' better judgment, who offered us to stay for another year so we could save up enough money to get a deposit down on a house, which is already wow, I said no, 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 me and my wife now need our own space. I am an absolute moron. If I had just stayed for 1 more year, I would have left the house at 21. Not great, but also not shameful. I would be leaving my parents' house as a savvy 21-year-old homeowner who paid board the entire time that he was with his parents and worked the entire time. But because of my obsession with YouTube, I wanted my own space to make my own videos, putting all of my eggs in that same basket again. 2 houses later of moving and an additional 3 years, we found ourselves at this property that we were recently forcibly evicted from. With 0 savings because, unfortunately, I don't know if you guys realize this, when you leave mummy and daddy's house, savings is damn near impossible, bar £100 here and £200 there. I think in the entirety of the time that I was living by myself and with my partner, we managed to save a whopping £500 between us that we had to spend on a moving van to the place that we just recently left. So what exactly made us homeless? Did we fall behind on bills? Did we take a shit on the landlord's head? No, dudes, we just made a Sunday dinner. I think last Thursday England was playing against Italy. I decided to invite my whole family around, and my wife went out of her way to make a really lovely beef dinner. I'm talking the whole lot. Roasted potatoes, cheese and broccoli, gammon, a beef joint, real top tier food. During the first 20 minutes of the game, our power tripped not once, but twice. And eventually, no matter how many times I flicked back on that circuit board and swore at it, it still wouldn't turn back on. So we had to send my entire family home and call out an electrician the next day. Well, my wife did. She's really good at whinging, so I set her loose on our landlord. The electrician is a third party hire. You see, we go through a company that represents landlords, so when anything goes wrong, we don't have to deal with the landlord directly. This company sent out their own representative electrician, and when this electrician pulled back only one of the plug sockets, he nearly had a cadenza. Unbeknownst to me and my family, we were literally living inside of a death trap. You see, you know those wires that are inside your plug sockets? Yeah, it's not really a good idea to have those same wires be covered in insulate foam, the same foam that's used to glue up plugs. The entirety of the wiring section was molded and mushed together with what essentially is glue, highly flammable glue. And this was in multiple plug sockets all around the entire house, as well as other plug sockets not being wired correctly, meaning we were virtually living inside of a powder keg. I haven't even mentioned the fact that a month previously we had to abandon the house for a day because the carbon monoxide alarm went off, because apparently the noxious gas that's supposed to be pumped outside was being pumped back through a window, but that's neither here nor there. We were forced to abandon ship with whatever black bags we could carry full of clothes, and at a later date we went back to retrieve our furniture. So, as it stands, I have been living with my parents for the past 4 days. As it stands, I am a nearly 25-year-old man without a driver's license, working a completely dead-end job, and now living with his mummy and daddy. And as it currently stands, I do not regret a fucking decision I've made. If you thought my advice to you was going to be some kind of woe is me tale, or some kind of cautionary, look what I have become, then you're dead wrong. Regardless of how bad it is right now, it can only get better. And at the end of the day, when I'm lying on my deathbed in 150 years from now, what am I going to be looking back more fondly on? A life where I lived my passions and I did my dream even though I was poor from doing it? Or a life where I slaved for 150 years doing something I didn't even care about? You haven't got infinite time. It runs out pretty quickly, and before you know it, you're going to wake up 35 with sagging balls and grey hair. Or in my case, next to someone with those features, like my wife. If you're concerned about me and my well-being, don't worry about it. Plan is now to stay with my folks for a year so we can save up enough money to buy a house, which is what I should have done years ago. You live and learn. But what does that mean for the channel? Absolutely nothing. As soon as I've settled back in and as soon as I'm comfortable again, I'm just going to carry on to normal. Unfortunately, it might not be as flashy as you're used to, and I definitely won't be able to shout racial slurs on the top of my lungs anymore, but at least you'll get something. The greatest irony of all of this is I literally changed my channel banner like last week before this happened because I was trying to encourage myself to upload consistently, but then that fell through again. My life is torture. Just like your life will be torture if you don't legally subscribe to Dino. A setback isn't the end, guys. Much love. I'll see you later. Bye bye.